My name is Luke. I will be your teacher for this live English class. I hope that you're ready to learn English. Today we're going to be talking about a few things. Of course, I'll be answering questions as I usually do. Pronunciation questions, grammar questions, culture questions, whatever kind of questions you may have. I'll also be sharing a few things, a few tips, a few suggestions for how to have more natural conversations, especially online. We'll talk about that. And then, something also very special, if you are watching this live, I will be doing a giveaway. What is a giveaway? I will be giving away one free course of your choosing. So the winner gets a free course. All right? Now, how do you win? How do you win today? It's going to happen during this live stream. So if you missed it, I'm sorry. That's too bad. That's terrible. Maybe next time. You have to make sure you join live. How do you get it? You get it by asking a question. Someone who asks a question will win. I'm going to choose a really interesting question. I'm going to choose a really good question that would benefit lots of people. And I will choose one of those, one of you guys, to give away one of my courses to. Just one, only one, okay? Now, if you haven't already, you can hit the like button. That would be most appreciated, genuinely, sincerely appreciated. And also, so check out my courses in the links in the description. Like, subscribe, check out my courses. Now, there are a couple different ways to check them. You can search them on Udemy, on Skillshare, and you can also find them on my website. So, that's it. Let's get started. Looks like we already have some people here. That's good news. That's wonderful. Awesome. I hope my sound is good today. My sound is clear. Bit of loud traffic noise today. Let me just make sure that we're successfully live everywhere. YouTube, Facebook, even Twitch, if you can imagine that. Let me just make sure we're shared everywhere. Jesus, hello. Lolly Lolly's here. Aries is here. When new video about American accent? Well, I might do a topic on that, but I mean, I have a lot of videos on the topic. I have 2 courses on the topic of the American accent that you can check out as well. Hello, so how are you doing today? I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. Let me just make sure that I share this. Hold on a second. Give me a second, guys. I just got to share this over here. Slightly manual. Make sure this is streaming in the right place. You know? Very important stuff. Very important. So bear with me. Bear with me for just a second. I've got something in my eye. That's bad. Okay. I think we're good. I think we're good. Yeah. Yes. All right. Hi, Alvin. Alvin says hi. What part of the U.S. are you from? I am actually Aries from what's called the Midwest. I'm from Ohio. I'm sure you've heard of it. A lot of people have heard of Ohio. Many people haven't been there, but they've heard of it. Everybody knows someone from Ohio, but not everybody has been there. Every time I meet someone, they say, oh, yeah, where are you from in Ohio? I know someone. I went to university with someone from Ohio. Who knows if they're being honest? Alvin, hello from the Philippines. Hello. Crash, is this slang? Yeah, it can have different meanings. To crash could be to fall asleep or to go to bed when you're very, very tired. I need to go crash. It could also be when you're sort of low energy. After you eat a bunch of sugar, then you might crash because you ate too much sugar. Your energy levels crash. So yeah, that can be slang. Crashing can mean a lot of different things, actually. Shaheen says, how are you doing today? I am doing very well, sir. Thank you very much. Tasap Johnny, hello from India. Hello, Tasap. You're watching from Twitch. Very cool. Very cool. Just as a reminder, guys, as I said at the beginning, some of you have heard this already. Today, we'll be doing 3 things. I'm going to be talking about. I've got something in my eye. I have this itch, like an itch. Oh, that's it. I had a hair under my eye. That's better. So I'm going to be talking about how to get to know people better on internet sort of chats, video chats, especially if you're talking on Zoom. You can use it in general, of course, but specifically how to avoid the simple, how are you? I'm good. Oh, good. How are you? I'm good. Okay. How to avoid that. We're going to be talking about that a bit. I will be answering your questions about whatever you may have questions about. Pronunciation, fluency, grammar, word differences, idioms, phrases, colloquialisms of all types. And let's see, what else? And there will be a giveaway today. That means I will be giving away a free course worth up to $179 to one of you. The thing you have to do to qualify for that is to ask an interesting question. I'm going to choose one of your questions that I think is really good and especially really useful to others. And one of you will win a course of your choosing. You can choose which one. If you want the pronunciation one, whatever it may be. The courses are, my courses are at least 3 hours long. Some of them are much longer. So that's what's going on today. Ermin is here from Yemen. Hello. Oh, Eamon, sorry, not Ermin. Eamon. Hello, hello. Privet Natalia. What? What? Anas Garman says, how are things? All right. Is Ohio different accent from New York? Says Aries. Yes. Ohio, well, not everyone from Ohio speaks the same way. So some people have what's more called a redneck dialect or accent, which means using some lazier sounding words and expressions and pronunciation. And some people do it and plenty of people don't do it. Not everyone speaks the same way in Ohio. And then in New York, it's kind of the same. New York is so mixed that it's hard to say that people have one way of speaking. However, there is the classic New Yorker accent, and that one changes the R's a little bit and pronounces things differently. Now, not everyone speaks like that. It's decreasing, in fact. There's this classic New Yorker accent. People talk like this, and they drink coffee, and they go out to lunch with their daughters, and they walk their dogs, and that's sort of the classic, hey, come on, what are you doing, eh? That's sort of the classic New Yorker accent or dialect, but it's fading away. And the funny thing is that the people who have it, that's really how it sounds. It sounds like a cartoon. Hey, come on, what are you doing? It's that sort of coffee. It's very cartoony, right? It's real. People really talk like that in New York. I can't believe it. I think it's funny. But you don't meet that many people who talk like that still. Lolly says, so sorry, I have to go. See you soon. See you soon, Lolly. Goodbye. Jeet says, hi, Luke. Hi, everyone. Ari says, for me, it's really difficult to understand Brad Pitt in movies. Awful Southern accent. Brad Pitt has a Southern accent? Does he? Are you sure you're thinking of Brad Pitt? Or are you thinking of Matthew McConaughey? Because Matthew McConaughey has a certain way of speaking. He talks kind of like this. He has a bit of a Southern accent sometimes. But I don't think Brad Pitt has a Southern accent. He might in some movies, but that's not real. That's not Brad Pitt. No, I don't think so. If you're talking about the film, what's the film? Inglourious Basterds. In the film Inglourious Basterds, if you've ever seen that movie, it's a great movie, by the way. It's a Quentin Tarantino movie about World War II. fictionalized historical film, and he plays a character in that movie that has a Southern accent, and it's pretty strong in that one. Brad Pitt from Shawnee, Oklahoma. Yes, but I still don't think he has a Southern accent. I've heard him speak in interviews, and I just doesn't seem like he has really an accent. But there are some actors who really do, and one that comes to mind immediately is Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey absolutely has a kind of Southern drawl. That's what it's called, a Southern drawl. I have to listen to Brad Pitt in an interview again, but I'm pretty sure that he doesn't. All right. So I hope you guys come up with some good questions. Again, I'm not guaranteeing that I will do a giveaway today. If there are, for example, no really good, interesting questions, I won't give a course away. If there are some really good, interesting questions, then we're going to do a course giveaway. One course today. And again, it has to be a question that can really help a lot of English learners. Okay? So that's your challenge. Think of an interesting English question. How do you recognize European actors in movies who are not native speakers? Well, I don't know. If they have a strong accent, that I might be able to tell. That's a tough one. I'm not quite sure about that. I'm not quite sure. Sound like an Italian accent, Anas says. Who has an Italian accent? Me? I have an Italian accent? Conhecendo from Brazil. Hello, 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 hello. All right. Well, let's get started with our main topic for today. I think we'll start with our main topic, and then I'll answer questions. Okay, so think of your questions. Again, could be questions about culture, pronunciation, grammar, idioms and phrases, whatever. And then we'll choose one of those if any of them are interesting. Subjective. I know, it's just my opinion, right? And we'll do a giveaway. All right. So let's start. Now, since COVID-19, all of our meetings are online. Many of our social gatherings are online. We talk to each other on Zoom, on Skype, Google Hangouts, FaceTime, whatever, right? This is how we socialize. This is how we work now, right? Yes. Now, before, let's say it's a meeting. Before the meeting starts, you have your colleague here, you start the Zoom call, and the Zoom call comes up. What do you say? What do you say to make small talk on Zoom? And I'm using Zoom just as one example because Zoom is very popular, right? It could be any of these. And you can use what we're going to talk about in this lesson outside of a video call. But I want to make it about a Zoom call so that we can focus it around a situation that many of us are familiar with. So, you're the first person on the call, someone else pops up on the call. You're waiting for two others. What do you say to the other person? Hi. How are you? Okay, now, is how are you acceptable? Of course it's acceptable. But I would like to suggest that you stop using how are you to begin a call unless it's a very quick interaction. If it's a very quick thing and it's time to get the meeting started, let's just start. Oh, hey, how are you? I'm good, good, okay, good. Because when you ask someone, how are you, it's really just a wave, hello. When you say, how are you, the other person will say, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm all right. And then they'll say, how about you? And you'll say, I'm okay, I'm fine, so-so, not bad. And then you'll start the meeting, right? We know that. But I don't think that how are you is a great way to begin small talk. Small talk is a slightly different thing. This is where we might have a few minutes, 2-3 minutes, to talk a little bit before the important thing begins, right? This is slightly different. So, when you want to have small talk, in a Zoom call, for example, don't start with how are you. Don't start with how are you. So what can you do? Well, we're going to talk about some different levels. We're going to talk about levels of familiarity, and we're going to talk about levels of conversation. And I'll explain what I mean as we go. But the first thing that I want you to just keep in the front of your mind for the next time you have a Zoom call, the first thing is stop saying how are you, okay? Unless it's a very quick interaction, don't say that. If you want a variation of how are you, why don't we try, how's it going? How are you doing? How are things? How have you been? How have things been? These are okay. Now, these are basically the same as how are you. They're not really different in meaning. Although how have you been and how have things been are focused more on recently and not right now, not at this moment, right? So, yeah, these are fine. But again, are they great ways to start a conversation? Are they great ways to begin small talk? I would say no. And that's because they encourage people to just say, yeah, things have been okay. Yeah, things have been good. And then say, how about you? And you could begin small talk, but it's not as easy. It's not as good a trigger as some other things that you could use. So, what would be the first level? The first level of actually getting somebody to talk a little bit. That's our goal, right? Our goal when we start small talk is to make the other person feel like they want to say something more than just good, right? If they feel like, I don't know what to say, then it's hard to have small talk. It's a struggle. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. I know how that feels. But if you ask a question that makes someone feel like I really want to say something, then small talk is easy. It flows naturally, and they think of you as a good conversationalist, right? So the first level of this is to focus on what instead of how, because how encourages good. How are you? How are things? I'm fine. Things have been good. But what encourages people to say a little bit more. So the first level of this would be, what's up? Now, what's up is another one that could just be a hello, kind of a greeting. A lot of people say, hey, what's up? And the other person just says, oh, not much. Oh, nothing. Not much and nothing are the most common responses to what's up. So actually, I would recommend not doing that one either, unless it's a very, very quick interaction. The other ones, though, might encourage people to say a little bit more. What's going on is sort of like, what are you doing? Well, if we're all working at home and you've been doing laundry or you just had lunch or you are maybe feeding your cat or you just went out for a walk or whatever, what's going on is what were you doing right before this call or what do you have happening today that's a little bit interesting? And there someone might say, oh, I was just out for a walk and I met my neighbor and we had a nice chat. And then I came upstairs for the meeting or I went for a walk in the park or whatever. At least there's something more. And then you can use that something more to ask another question to continue small talk. The key to having small talk is to be able to ask good questions. Now, what are you up to is the same thing. What are you doing is kind of the same thing. What were you doing right before this call? Or what are you going to do right after this call? Now, what's new is very similar to this, but what's new is kind of like, tell me something interesting that has happened to you recently. So that's actually a really good one. Hey, what's new? Tell me something about you that's been going on with you that I might not know. Maybe you are going on a vacation soon. Or maybe you met someone yesterday that I know too. And we both know that person. Or maybe you have an interesting thing to do this weekend. Whatever it may be. Okay, so now these are very general. So you can use these usually with anybody, even if you don't know them. The what questions and the how questions can usually be used to start small talk with people who you know and people who you don't know. Okay, now what's the next level here? The next level is where we try to bring in things that are going on that we might both be interested in or that we might both know about. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of examples, but the key here is not to focus on which example I give, but to understand the basic idea. And the basic idea is that I'm searching for a common topic. And you might have something to say about that common topic, even if we don't share that thing in common. So let me give you an example of what I mean here, okay? Have you seen season 4 of Stranger Things? Maybe that's a show that's popular right now that's on TV. I should have capitalized Stranger and Things, but you get the idea. It's the name of a TV show. Now, if you haven't, then you might ask me whether or not I would recommend it. And that might begin small talk. So even if you haven't seen it, it can still start small talk. But the key thing is that it's something going on now. It's a thing that is being shown right now, or that is relevant right now. Or are you following the NBA Finals? Now, that's going on right now. But again, maybe you're not interested in that. And you say, oh, no, I'm not really following the finals. Who is playing? Maybe you don't even know. Then I can talk about that. Hey, again, that can start small talk. What we're trying to do is find little topics or little kernels of things happening right now, even if that is not a shared interest. Because those little kernels can make other ideas pop out, and we can grab onto those other ideas and ask more questions. If you don't know anything about the NBA Finals, and I do, then you might ask me something about that. Or if you are interested in that, then I might ask you further questions. So either way, something is going to come out. And then we can either ask each other questions or talk about that thing, share what we think about that thing. Usually people are willing to have small talk, especially in this sort of online meetup situation or online Zoom meeting situation. People want to talk about something, so it's actually easier to get small talk started. You really just have to ask something, and then people will share something. Now, if they say no, and then they just look down at their keyboard, then you can probably take the hint that this person doesn't want to talk with you. They don't want to have a conversation with you at all. All right? That's good information. We can sit here in silence, and I will eat popcorn until the meeting starts, or whatever it is. Sip coffee and stare at you, whatever it may be, right? But the point is, I'm picking out things that are relevant now that we might share. Now, if it's something that has nothing to do with you, probably, then I might choose something different, right? For example, the NBA Finals that's going on in the United States, that might be something that I would bring up to someone also in the United States who might be interested in that. I'm actually not interested in the NBA Finals, but I can say something about it, right? I could say something about it if someone asked me. If I were talking with someone from another country, I might not choose that question. I might choose something completely different, something else we might share. So think about what you might share or what you might have in common or some topic that could be interesting between you in some way, and ask a question around that. And it could be something in the news, like, did you hear about Trump getting hospitalized? Do you think he's faking it? Now, that's something that's in the news recently. Donald Trump went to the hospital for COVID-19, and some people have said that it's fake, just as a sort of media story. I don't know if it is or not. Probably not. I don't know. But if someone were going to bring that up, then we might have an interesting conversation about it. It's a topic in the news. So topics in the news can be a good way to pass the time. Now, we don't want to get too serious into politics, but it can still be an interesting way to begin. Is indoor dining allowed where you are yet? If we're in two different cities, for example, in the United States, this is a question that might be useful or relevant. I would ask this one. I do ask this one when I talk to others in the United States, or sometimes they ask me this one. I'm in New York. Right now in New York City, you cannot eat indoors. You can't. All right. So I would say no, and I might ask others if they can, and we can share our experiences of living through COVID-19, for example, right? It's a sort of shared experience that we have. If I were talking to someone in another country, I might ask this question, or something else that is shared between us related to the pandemic, because the entire world has shared that. So all of these are little idea nuggets that you can pull up and then see what the other person does with it. And then based on what they do with it, you might think about how to ask another question. Now, there's one more level to this. And the next level is when you know someone and you know something about them, and you're asking a question to get them to share something that you don't know about the thing that you know. Now, that might sound a little confusing. So this last piece is really for people we're familiar with. We have a history. We're colleagues. We know each other. I know something about you. You know something about me. Maybe we're friends. Whatever. When we have small talk, instead of using these general things like what are you doing or what are you up to, or talking about the news, we can do those. We could instead ask each other questions based on something that we've learned about each other. Right? I know that you applied to get a new job. You applied to Samsung. You want to work at Samsung. But I don't know the outcome of that or the result of that. So I can ask that. You know that I have 12 children, right? And so you ask me something related to the fact that I have 12 children. You know that one of my children is in college, right? And you want to ask about that. You know something, but you don't know the whole picture. So what you do is you ask a question based on the unknown part of what you know something about. You ask the question based on something you know a little bit about, but you don't know the whole picture, or you don't know how it ended up. You don't know the conclusion. You don't know the latest update related to that. And that's a great way to have small talk, because people like to talk about themselves. People like to talk about their kids. People like to talk about what's going on in their lives. So that's the best way. If you know something about the other person, that's the best way. I was just having a conversation before filming this. I was having a conversation with a colleague. I know that that colleague is in an uncomfortable situation for 14 days, and I asked some questions about that. I didn't know everything, so I asked questions around that situation. And he was willing to share some experiences, and that was a good way to sort of start a conversation. It was nice. So, some examples. Did you ever hear back from Samsung on your application? I know you applied to Samsung. What's the result? Right? I want to hear about that. How are you and the kids dealing with homeschooling? Right? If your kids can't go to school because of the pandemic, how's that going? How are you handling it as a parent? How are your kids handling it as students studying things and taking exams? How's that going? So you'll probably have a lot of things to share. What's happening with the vacation you were planning? I thought you were going this week. So that means I thought you should be on vacation now, but you're not, clearly. So what's going on? Did you reschedule? Did you postpone? What happened? Or maybe you're going somewhere else, or maybe you're on vacation right now and you're just using a fake background and I can't see the palm trees behind you. Did you ever find out what happened to Karen after she moved to Vermont? You and I have maybe a mutual acquaintance or friend named Karen, right? And we both know this person, but you know more about Karen. And so I ask you about this because you might know what's going on with Karen. I know she moved to Vermont, but I don't know what's happening with her now that she's moved there. I know that you're better friends with her than I am, so this is something I'd like to ask you about. Again, all of these are just ideas. What I really want you to focus on is the ideas behind the ideas. When you begin small talk, you're bringing things up to try to get the other person to feel like they want to say something. They have something to say. And if you say, "How are you?" they might want to say, "Fine," but they might not want to say something else. So that's why you shouldn't say it to make small talk. It's not the best choice. There are many other better things that you can ask and say to begin a nice, casual chit-chat before the meeting starts, or maybe when you're just catching up with a friend. You can do this in person as well. You can do this over the phone as well. But I think it's very common, especially now, that most of us are having a lot of one-to-one or group conversations through video chat. So I hope these are useful. If you have any questions about this, let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I would appreciate if you could hit the like button, and also check out my full English courses in the links in the description. Okay, so I hope that's useful. Hey, Jeeta's here. Nectar's here. It's, what, 3 a.m.? Yikes. Hello, sir. Ramal? I'm afraid I don't quite understand that comment. Mayuri? Is that how you say your name? Mayuri? Sukdeep says, how should I spend my time practicing how to use the words I already know more effectively through conversation and practice, or should I spend my time learning new words? That's a good question. Guys, if you are coming in now and you weren't here at the beginning, we're doing a giveaway today. What does that mean? That means I'm going to choose one really interesting question among the questions that you guys ask related to your English learning journey, something that's really useful to yourself and other learners. I think that Sukdeep's question here might be a good candidate to win one free course. So if you're interested in getting a free course that's worth up to $179, I won't be doing this often. And so ask a good question, and I will choose one by the end of our live class today. All right? An interesting question about grammar, pronunciation, culture, idioms and phrases, pizza toppings, or whatever. Okay. I'm just checking a message. Sukdeep says, should I spend my time practicing how to use the words I already know more effectively through conversation and practice? Or should I spend my time learning new words? Well, this is a really good question. And instead of saying it's either A or B, I'm going to recommend a focus, because it really is not an A or B situation. It's not a situation where it must be one or the other. Life doesn't work like that, right? Nothing is completely this and none of that. There's always maybe more of this because I'm focused on that, and less of this because I'm not focused on it. Yes, right? That's how life really works. So how can we think about using and learning words? What's the best approach? If you're going to put your resources, time and energy resources into something, put your time and energy resources into becoming a better user of the language, a better communicator in the language. If you're able to write that question that you just wrote right there, then you probably have a pretty good understanding of a fairly large number of words. So I would strongly recommend that you put your energy and time mostly into using those words really well. And I don't just mean looking at the word individually and figuring out how to use it. What I mean is, how do I become a better writer? How do I write more clearly? So I'm going to practice writing every day. I'm going to find a writing partner who can give me feedback on my writing, and I'm going to check their writing, and they're going to check my usage of words and see which other words I might have used in this situation. We're going to score each other. Okay, great. Or I'm going to do the same thing for speaking practice. I'm going to find a speaking partner. I'm going to record myself every day, and I'm going to give myself a score on how effectively I use words. Or I'm going to try to use these 10 vocabulary words that I know, but I'm not really comfortable with. I'm going to do a presentation or give a short speech or answer a question or just talk and talk and talk until I figure out a way to use those words. All right, those are exercises. Or more generally, I'm going to join a meetup group and I'm going to have a weekly chat, an online video chat with the people in the meetup group, and I might use new words that I've learned, or at least I will get a feeling for using other words related to the topic that we're talking about. And that will make me a better speaker overall, and that will make me able to find the vocabulary that I already know more easily. It will make me a more confident speaker. Okay, so that's just a couple of examples. That should be your focus. Now, does that mean you shouldn't be learning any words, any new words? No, you should be, but you shouldn't sit down and study 10 words a day like that. That's not the right way to do it. Instead, you should roll your learning of other words into the practice that you're doing anyway to improve your understanding of or usage of the words that you already know. Now, maybe that means you like to read. I really recommend that everyone who can read, practice reading. If you find reading English books very tiring, maybe that's just because you haven't done it enough, right? Maybe you just need to do it more. You need to practice it more, and maybe you'll start enjoying it. Or maybe you just need to choose different books. Maybe you need to find books that you like and read those. Maybe that's it. By reading, you're going to discover new words. You're going to see them in context. You're going to see how they're used. Even if you're not underlining the words, you're going to get a sense for vocabulary. You're going to get a sense for words and phrases, special words and phrases, idioms, things like that. You'll see how they're used. So you're going to be, through the other things that you're doing, learning new words. Maybe you're in that meetup group that I mentioned, and you hear someone say a word, and that's a new word for you. Well, you learned that sort of by accident. So sitting down and learning words, studying words, is probably the biggest waste of your time if we're talking about time spent on improving English. Because if you do activities correctly to work on other areas of your English, like the things that I mentioned, then you'll be learning words automatically. You'll be learning words naturally, and you won't have to specially separate time for learning words. Does that make sense? Make sure that you're learning words as part of or rolled into other activities as part of your English learning lifestyle. So if I were you, my focus would be on building out a plan that works with your lifestyle so that you can say you have an English learning lifestyle, whatever that includes. And it should include stuff that you enjoy doing so that you don't give up on it a week later. It should be a regular, ongoing thing, something that you don't have to force yourself to do, but that you want to do, that includes some difficulty so that you're always pushing yourself to become a better speaker, a better writer, a better, more knowledgeable English speaker in general. And then make sure that those activities include new words that pop up occasionally, naturally, whether it's in reading, whether it's in the feedback that you get from your writing partner, whether it's in a meetup group that you're in, or whether it's on the internet somewhere, whatever, it should happen automatically. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question. That's a good question. A lot of people struggle with this, and I think people spend much more time learning new words because they don't know what else to do, and because it's such a safe and simple activity. Just sit down and learn 10 words, and you feel like you've accomplished something. Well, what if you've accomplished nothing? What if you've wasted an hour doing that? Is that possible? I think it is possible. I think people spend way too much time on that. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. It's a good one. Thanks a lot. Guys, don't forget, if you haven't already, to hit the like button, subscribe, and check out my full courses in the links in the description. Okay. What else do we have here? Sure thing. Good question. I'd like to ask, as English is originated by Roman language, so could it be helpful to learn it for understanding the English language? I think Jeet's question is, should we learn Latin as a way to learn English? And the answer is no. And also, English is not a Latin language. It is not. It is not. There are influences from Latin to English, especially some of the prefixes that we use, like pro and ex and those sorts of things. There are some prefixes and suffixes, but the root of English is from another language family that is dead now, called Proto-Germanic, which is not German. And then from Proto-Germanic, various languages emerged, including German, including English, and Dutch, and a bunch of other modern languages. So English, Dutch, and German are cousins of each other in the language tree. And then English is unique because English was impacted by then other languages. There was the Norman conquest of England, and that influenced English. That's why we have words like beef and cow. Beef and cow. Yes, beef and cow. That's why one is called beef, the food, and the other is cow, the animal. That sort of thing. We have French words. So the rich French people were using Old French, and then the poor peasants were using what we would call something like Old English. And that was closer to the Proto-Germanic, but it had evolved by that time. And then it changed again when there was something called the what was it called? Nordic conquest? Was it a conquest? Maybe. So there was an influence from Norse languages like Old Norse, and that's where we get a lot of the days of the week and a lot of other noun words. And so English has a very interesting history, but I don't think you would benefit from learning Latin. I don't think you would benefit from learning Latin. You might, if you're a Portuguese speaker or a French speaker or an Italian speaker or a Spanish speaker or a Romanian speaker, then yes. Yes. Then you might benefit. It might give you some interesting context. Okay. Nectar Sweet says, no thank you, in a more familiar way. Yeah. This is a good one. This is a good one. Okay. Nectar Sweet says, is there any way to say no thank you in a more familiar way? Because no thank you has a feeling of being polite, too polite for speaking with friends, right? And I agree with that. Although I'm quite formal with my friends often, and my friends think that's weird sometimes. My friends might offer me something, and I'll say, "Oh no, thank you." But that's just me. I'm kind of odd in that way. But yes, that's true. If you say no, thank you when someone offers you something, that could be considered a little too formal, and that might make a friend feel slightly uncomfortable, right? So it's a good question. Now, the shorter version of this automatically sounds less formal. It sounds much more casual. The shorter version is obviously no thanks. So that's okay. No thanks is fine. Now, is that as polite? No, it's not as polite. Could it be rude? It's not rude. It's kind of neutral. It's just a way to say no. It's better than saying no. Hey, do you want to go pick apples tomorrow? No. No, thank you. No, thanks. Now, for that one, no thank you might be okay with a friend because you're refusing a request to do something. It's a big event. They might have been excited to go pick apples with you and you want to refuse in a way that's even more polite than you would normally refuse. But if it's something very small, like do you want a piece of chocolate, then saying no thanks is probably better. No thanks. No thanks. Oh, no thanks. And if you said no thank you to a piece of chocolate, that might be weird. That would be weird. But if you just said no, I think that would be okay because it's such a small thing. It's not a big deal. So you have to pay attention to the situation, right? You have to really pay attention to how big of a thing is it? How big of a refusal is it? Were they looking forward to asking you to do this thing? Then you should definitely not say no. Oh, let's go pick apples this weekend. No. Okay. Right. How do they feel? So to compensate for that, the bigness of the ask, then no thank you is probably appropriate, or I guess no thanks. But if we're just talking about this sort of small refusal, right, small dismissals, then we have a couple other interesting phrases we can use. We could say, I'm good. I'm good. Now, this is not a hard refusal, but it might be when something is offered just because someone is there, right? I'm going out to get a cup of coffee. We're colleagues, and I say, hey, do you need a cup of coffee? And I say, I'm good. That doesn't mean you're hoping I say yes. Please, please say yes. Because in fact, you're only asking me if I need a coffee because you're going out anyway to get a coffee, and you're going to bring one back to me. So in fact, you probably want me to say no because me saying, yes, please get me 3 triple lattes with skim milk, 1 pump of almond syrup, one of those, please, with half oat milk. You know, if you want this complicated order, that's going to make your life harder. So you probably are secretly hoping I say no, please say no, please say no, right? Because you want to just go get coffee. But you know that if you come back with coffee and I see that you have coffee, then I might say, hey, why didn't you ask me if I wanted a coffee? Right? So the perfect thing for that situation would be to say, I'm good, or I'm fine, or I'm okay. So I'm good, I'm fine, and I'm okay are really soft, really natural ways to say no when something is offered, not necessarily because someone really wants to give you something, but just because they need to offer it. Maybe because it's sort of a social obligation, like the coffee situation. Hey, do you want me to get you a coffee? I'm going to the coffee shop. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm okay. That means no. That means no. Now, that might sound strange to you. I'm good means no. That's right. It means no. What if I want to say yes? Can I say good? Good. No, that is strange. Instead, we can say, sure, yeah, I'll have one. Yeah, please get me a whatever kind of coffee that we want to get. So just to recap, no thank you is formal, but sometimes we want to be formal to compensate for refusing a big request that we can see the other person is excited to mention. No is for very small things, when it's not a big deal at all, and we just want to get it out of the way and say it quickly. I don't know. No. No thanks is kind of in the middle, and it's usually for small stuff as well. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm okay. This is for small stuff that's being offered for whatever reason, even if the other person doesn't really want us to say yes, and they're just asking to be polite. It's really like saying, if I don't have the thing you're offering, I will be fine. In fact, I'm so fine that I don't want that because maybe I had a coffee 20 minutes ago. So I hope that makes sense. Nectar Sweet, I hope that answers your question. It is a good one. These are really common. All of these are really common. And you just have to pay attention to the situation you're in, to the context you're in, and find the right expression to use. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the full courses, of course, in the links in the description. Okay. Good one, good one, good one, good one. Very good. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm okay. I think if you study a science in English, Latin should help you a lot. Well, yes, it's true that scientific things have Latin names, but learning Latin, the whole language, would be a waste of time, because when you're learning the scientific names of the things, like Balaenoptera musculosis or something like that, you only need to know that. You don't need to know the whole language, so it doesn't help to know the whole language. I'm not sure if there's any point to learning Latin. In fact, that's my real opinion. Hello, I am from Kurt. Oh, let me scroll up a little bit. I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions here. If I speak with someone 1 hour every day, will that improve my English? Probably, yeah. Yeah, even if it's not a native speaker, I would say that it would improve your English to at least practice speaking. At least it would make you more comfortable, more confident. I have learned many phrases in English, but when I try to learn more, I forget it easily. Should I focus only on useful words and not waste time on vocab that I am hardly going to use? Yeah, probably you should focus on more high-frequency things. I mean, generally speaking, it's a good rule of thumb to focus on things that you're going to use more often, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't learn other things. And I would say if you can't remember stuff that you learned, then you might look at other techniques for remembering things. Maybe you're using the wrong learning technique. Maybe you need to check out other things. Try the Anki flashcard spaced repetition method as a memory technique. Try the Loki mind palace method. Try making example sentences when you find and discover a new word. Try using a word cloud or looking up synonyms of the word. I mean, there are lots of different ways to learn. People do it in different ways, and maybe you just haven't found the right method. To watch movies with subs to learn new words, or to watch with no subs and understand speech. But how can you understand with no subs if you don't know a certain word in the sentence? Okay. Aries says, watch movies with subs to learn new words, or to watch with no subs to understand speech. But how can you understand with no subs if you don't know certain words in the sentence? And I think that's an interesting one, right? What can you do if you just don't know that word or you don't know that phrase? And that's going to come up a lot, right? If you're watching a movie with the intention or with the purpose of learning new words and phrases, then you should do it in stages. Okay, so you have an episode of a TV show. Maybe it's The Legend of Korra or Avatar, The Last Airbender. It's a good one to choose, I think, because it's not too difficult. All right. The first time, maybe try watching it without subtitles and see how much you can understand. If you're watching the whole episode, go through it, and if you don't understand something, go back and listen to it again. Make sure that you really don't understand, because maybe you don't understand simply because you're not used to listening to English as often as you're used to reading it, right? That's a possibility, and that happens really often, where if I showed you the word or the phrase, actually you know it. You go, oh yeah, oh that's what they said. But you didn't understand because you've had much more practice reading and learning in school and seeing English than you have of English going in your ear hole and then you processing it. So it could be a matter of listening. I would suggest that you make sure it isn't first, right? First, you listen to it and listen to it again and listen to it again and see if you can catch what word that might be, because that's going to sharpen your listening skills. You're going to be a better listener if you do that. And because you don't have words to look at, you're forcing yourself to pay attention to the sounds. That's what can get your listening ability up to the same level as your reading ability. You know that word when you see it, but you don't know it when you hear it. Isn't that a little weird? Think about that for a second. Why is it that this word is special coming in these things, in that you know it, but not when it comes in this thing or these things, right? That's weird. You know the word, it's in your brain. Why should the hole it goes in make it different or make it not understandable? It shouldn't, right? It's just because you haven't brought your English listening up to that level yet, and you need to work on it. So first, try to listen to it or try to watch the episode or the movie without subtitles. Then if you're absolutely sure, this part I absolutely 100% cannot understand, then you turn on subtitles. English subtitles, not your language, English subtitles. And then you search that word or search that phrase that you definitely don't know. All right, I definitely don't know that. I don't know that word. I don't know what that means. I don't know that idiom or that phrasal verb or whatever. I'm going to look it up. Okay, then you look up what it means. Then, once you've done that, let's say you do it for the whole episode. Once you've done that and you've found the words and phrases you don't know, you've looked them up, you've researched them, hopefully in an all-English dictionary and not in a bilingual dictionary, then you go back and you watch it without subtitles, because now you know it. There's no excuse for you. You have no excuses left, right? You can't say, oh, I don't know that word. No, you looked it up. You wrote it down, so you have to know it. You know what that word is, so now you need to teach your ear to know it when it hears that, right? So then you watch that episode again. You watch it one more time. You make sure you understand everything 100%. Then you move on and you watch the next episode. That would be my recommendation. First, test your listening. Make listening your first choice, because that's what most people need to bring up to a higher level. There isn't really a reason why your ability to read should be higher than your listening. Just lack of practice. So that would be my suggestion for how to watch an episode of a TV show or a movie, although I think TV show episodes are better because they're shorter, and you can use sort of a method of having a chunk that you learn and a chunk that you learn rather than this one giant thing. All right, it's easier to do with short, ideally 10 to 15 minute episodes. I had mentioned Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a great show, and I think it's at the right level for a lot of learners. So thanks for the question, Aries. That's a good one. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and of course, check out my full courses in the links in the description. Okay, great question. Good one. Is it possible? Oh, Aries has a lot of questions today. Is it possible to speak as an American native speaker with American accent for foreign speakers and everybody can't guess that you're not from the U.S.? And if so, how long does it take to achieve? Eugh. All right, I might get to that one. Hello, I'm from Kurdistan. A lot of... okay, let me catch up on some of these questions here. Let me take a sip of coffee. That's more important. I am from Kurdistan in Iraq. Iraq or Iraq? I always get confused about the pronunciation. Is it Iraq or is it Iraq or is it Iraq? I have to learn that. I love English language, so I'm going to make friendly with English people for practice English. Okay, but don't tell them that, because they might feel used. You know, never say to someone, "Hey, I'm using you to practice my English," and no other reason. They will feel terrible. Is it better to read fiction or nonfiction for learning new words useful to everyday conversation? I like fiction, has a lot of new words, but most of them have very little use cases. Excellent question, Sukdeep. Excellent question there. Do writing poetry or paragraph could help us improve English for storage of vocabulary. I'm not sure what you mean by storage of vocabulary there, but poetry or paragraphs, they serve different purposes, right? Should I write poetry or write prose? P-R-O-S-E, prose, paragraphs, essays. If you're practicing your writing as a way to remember vocabulary better, probably writing prose or paragraphs or essays is better. But poetry has its use. Poetry has its role. And the role of poetry is to get you to play with the language and break it apart and not be afraid to do things that don't follow the normal rules. I mean, if you read poetry, you'll see that most things are not full sentences. Some things look random, strange punctuation, things beginning without a capital letter, bizarre words and sounds and things that rhyme. So poetry is a lot of fun. I like to write poetry, but it serves a different role. Now, is it good for memorizing words? Maybe. I think that probably writing an essay about a topic is better for that because you're organizing your thoughts, you're putting down your ideas, you're trying to use words effectively to communicate clearly to someone. So if you want to practice words you've learned, if you want to practice your writing skills, if you want to practice your communication ability in English, probably write essays on a topic. Practice that. That's a great way to practice every day. Write on a prompt and have a friend or a partner who can read and give you feedback, and maybe you check theirs. That's great. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't practice poetry. Read poetry. Buy books of poetry. Check out some Charles Bukowski or something like that, and then play with words and play with the language in your own way, and that's going to give you another sense of how the language can be used artistically, how it can be used creatively, right? That's cool too. That's very important as well. I mean, when I'm in school, or when I was in school, when native English speakers are in school, we have to read both prose, we have to read literature, we also have to read poetry. We have to read a lot of poetry, a lot of the classics. And the reason that we have to learn poetry is that the education system wants us to understand the language on the level of metaphor, on the level of sounds and rhymes and alliteration and allusion and all of that stuff, right? Poetry is just a different kind of thing, but it is also a very important part of the language, and poetry is connected to music. I think English is a beautiful language because it's so flexible and bendy, and you can do a lot of things with it. But without an understanding of poetry, it's, I think, hard to appreciate that part of the English language. So poetry, yes. Prose, yes, but for different reasons. That's a good question, Jeed. Thanks a lot. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button. That would be most appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe, and also check out the full English courses in the links in the description. As I mentioned, we're going to do a giveaway for one of the courses. One of you guys will win a free course today. We've had some good questions. Sir, please say me, how can I use "how are you, I'm fine, thanks"? This type of thing, new style. I'm not quite sure I totally understand that one. We were talking earlier about other ways to say it. I think the word sleep are used more commonly, like I am sleepy. You seem you need some sleep, but is there any way to use asleep other than I fell asleep? Fall asleep. Well, you would use asleep to state a condition of someone, right? I'm looking at my cat right now over there. My cat is asleep. That is the state or condition. Sleep is usually used as a noun or a verb. It can be used as an adjective, but usually it's used as a noun or a verb. The state or condition is asleep. The cat is asleep. She is asleep. Now, can we use asleep for other things outside of organisms that sleep? Yeah, you could say that an economy is asleep, or a country is asleep, or a culture is asleep, or someone's not paying attention, they were asleep. Were you asleep? Have you been asleep? As a way to say, have you not been paying attention? Were you not aware of what was going on? So yeah, you can use it for other things. But off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of all the ways that you could use it, and I'm not coming up with great examples. Absolutely, though, yes, it can be used in other ways. I see native speakers like using get to in oral English. Could you explain more how to use it? Get to. Not quite sure what you mean by that one. Ermin's telling me I'm missing a question. Which question? Which question did I miss? All right. I think we'll do one more question, and then we will call it a day. And we'll do the winner. The winner chicken dinner. Okay. Sukdeep129 says, is it better to read fiction or nonfiction for learning new words useful to everyday conversation? I feel like fiction has a lot of new words, but most of them have very little use case. I think that's about right. Not very little. Certainly in dialogue, in fiction, when characters are talking to each other, you get really common words, everyday words. But then it's so common and everyday that you might not come across a lot of new and useful words as often as you might in nonfiction. And then in fiction, when they're describing a scene, then you might come across words that, again, aren't quite as high frequency as you would see in nonfiction. Now, why is nonfiction usually very high frequency common words? Because the purpose of nonfiction is to convey or communicate information to you. And the purpose of fiction is to give you a picture in your mind, help you understand how someone feels, give you a sense for the suggested meaning of the story or the deeper themes of the story. There's a lot more happening in fiction. And because of that, I think there are more words which are lower frequency, more lower frequency words. And you could compare something like Harry Potter, for example, to a nonfiction book like How to Win Friends and Influence People, or The Power of Habit, right? So let's say you take The Power of Habit compared to Harry Potter. By far, The Power of Habit is going to feel more like me talking to you now than Harry Potter does. When you read Harry Potter, it's interesting, but you're going to come across a lot of what I can call flowery words, which are used to paint the picture, right? So think of a novel, think of fiction as a painting. Is a painting an efficient way to express information? Not so much. A painting is an efficient way to express a feeling or a mood or a general idea, an impression. And fiction is really good for that, generally speaking. Fiction is about getting across those feelings and moods. Now, there are different types of fiction. Some fiction is more like nonfiction, of course, right? There are so many different kinds. I'm speaking very generally. Now, nonfiction is by definition about expressing information, about trying to teach you something, share information, about giving you a new idea that might help you in your life, or telling you about something that happened in history, for example, and why someone did something or why a group of people did something. So while the topic of that might be new and not very high frequency, the words used to talk about that topic or express that topic will be closer to someone speaking to you. Nonfiction is usually supposed to be at an 8th grade and is meant to kind of sound like someone talking to you about that topic. And people don't speak like fiction sounds, usually. So, yes, I could have just said yes, but to answer the question and explain why, I think if you want to get written material that can help you learn words that are more high frequency, and that's your goal, then perhaps focus on nonfiction. There are lots of great nonfiction. Of course, there are variations here. There are many different types of nonfiction, many different types of fiction. But as a general rule, I would go with nonfiction if I were you. It's generally written to be understood clearly and to express information. So, great question. If you have any other questions, guys, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button. Of course, subscribe and check out the full English courses in the links in the description. Nectar Sweet says nonfiction is way more easy to read than fiction. Yes, I totally agree. Nectar Sweet has been sharing some pages from I believe it's Eat, Pray, Love, which is fiction. And she's been coming across cases where someone is saying something that's very local, cultural, or a word or phrase that could have different meanings. And yes, that's right. That fiction is kind of like that. It's more dialogue-y. It's more like a movie. It's more colorful, and you have to kind of go through it and try to figure out what it means. And there's a lot of local cultural stuff that could be confusing. But if you're reading a book that's trying to give you advice about what you could do to make more money on the side, well, then they definitely don't want you to misunderstand the main point, right? So they're going to write it so that you will understand. That's the idea. What did I say? Eat, pray, love. Yeah. Did I say something else? Eat, pray. All right. Excuse me for my grammar. I'm Spanish speaker. Teacher, what are the best ways to understand the real native English speakers? We might be able to get to that one next time. Next time. All right. Guys, I think it's time to choose a winner. Now, we had a couple of good questions today. Aries asked several good questions, right? A couple of really good questions. And also, Sukdeep asked a couple of really good questions as well. I answered a couple of those. Nectar had a good question. Jeet had a good question. Now, this is subjective, but I'm going on a gut feeling here. I'm going on a gut feeling of who asked the question that would be most useful to most people. Let me see here. So I answered two really interesting questions from Aries. One was learning using subtitles to watch movies, and the other one was what was the other question? Wasn't the Brad Pitt question. Is it important in American accent to stress only nouns and verbs and don't pay a lot of attention to prepositions, articles, and others? Oh, that's a good question that I didn't even answer. But I answered another question from Aries. What was the question? Yeah, some really good questions. All right. That my overall impression for today is just because there were several really good ones. I think we'll go with Aries for today. That's just my general impression, the one that sticks to my mind, my honest impression. So Aries, congratulations. I think you asked some really good questions today. Very insightful, very useful to other learners. If I didn't pick yours, it's not a personal thing. I'm not saying I'm not going to pick you. We'll do more of these in the future. I will try to come up with a better way to choose that. Maybe we'll do a random drawing or something. I put names in a hat and pick one out. But I think Aries had some really good questions today. So Aries, get in touch with me. Contact me somehow on email or maybe through the YouTube channel. Somehow email me and I will give you access to a course of your choosing. Guys, if I didn't choose you today, nothing personal. Don't worry about it. Try again next time. Again, I think Nectar and Jeet and Sukdeep also had some good questions today as well. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it a day. Thanks all for watching. I appreciate it. And I might be doing another one tomorrow. Who knows? Nectar says, I didn't mean to force you. Sorry, it was rude. That's not rude. You're welcome to advocate for people. Maybe what I should do is, if you guys have a suggestion on because one time, this is something that happened. One time, I asked a question during a live stream. I think I was in Manhattan or something, and I asked a question, and one person answered the question slightly after another, and they won a free course. And because they got it slightly after, they were very angry, and they unsubscribed and said, I will never talk to you again or something like that. It got really angry. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, I want to be fair. And so maybe one good idea would be, for example, next time, let's say there's a top 5 situation. Sukdeep and Jeet and Nectar and Aries and who else would have been in the top 5 for today? Eddie? Who else had a good question for today? Lolly left early. So we maybe choose 5, and then I put 5 names on a hat and mix it around and pick one. That way the final choice is random, and that might be a good way to do it. I don't know. I'm just thinking as I'm talking. So we'll figure out a way. I'm sorry I didn't get to your question, Santiago. Please ask next time. I can't always answer every question every time, but make sure to subscribe so that you can see when the next one happens. Ask your question again, and we'll try to get to it next time. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. It's been fun, been interesting. I finished 1 cup of coffee. Almost during today's live stream. It's good to be back. I took a break because I was working on something very intensely, and so I'm back now, and I'm going to be doing more of these because I really enjoy them. Well, guys, have a good day, morning, afternoon, evening, if you like. For some of you, it's very late. Goodness gracious. And I will see you hopefully sometime this week. If not tomorrow, then maybe on Thursday. I hope. I think. Yes, should be. All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.